It was a Friday morning, the kind of morning that carries no warning signs. I was sipping cheap instant coffee, scrolling aimlessly through my emails when I saw the subject line. Urgent. Account overdrawn. My stomach sank. Click. Red. Blink. I had overdrafted by $325, and I had no idea how it happened. I called the bank immediately. The voice on the other end confirmed it. Automatic payments, late fees, overdraft charges, a cocktail of financial ignorance. As I hung up, shame wrapped itself around me like a heavy coat. I had a college degree, a decent-paying job, and yet I was financially clueless. I didn't budget. I didn't save. I couldn't explain the difference between a Roth IRA and a 401k, let alone pronounce compound interest without flinching. That evening, I met Charles. Charles was a retired financial advisor in his early 60s. He wore sweaters with elbow patches and had a calm voice that made you feel like things weren't as bad as they seemed. I had met him once before at a local community meetup, and out of desperation, I reached out. "You got hit by the silent killer," he said, stirring his tea. "Lack of financial literacy." I sighed. "I guess I always thought money stuff would just work itself out." He chuckled. "It never does. But here's the good news. Financial literacy isn't some secret language. It's a set of principles. You learn them, you apply them, and you win." And that was the night everything changed. Lesson 1. Know where you stand. Charles looked me straight in the eye and said, "You can't fix what you won't face." He handed me a notebook and a pen. "Before we talk about budgets, investments, or anything else, you need a full, honest snapshot of your financial life." At first, it felt terrifying. I didn't want to see the numbers. Ignorance, after all, had a strange way of feeling safer than reality. But Charles insisted. "List every single debt you have," he instructed. "Student loans, credit cards, personal loans, everything. Then list all your assets, no matter how small." It took hours. I dug through old emails, banking apps, and dusty file folders. The result was sobering. I owed over $24,000 and had less than $800 to my name. Charles smiled. Not because he was happy about my situation, but because facing the truth meant I had taken the first step toward changing it. "You have more power now than you did yesterday," he said. "Because now you know." He explained that financial literacy begins not with complex investing strategies, but with brutal honesty. You can't create a map to where you want to go if you don't know where you're starting. Charles also shared a statistic that stunned me. According to a 2022 survey, nearly 65% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. I was not alone, but I didn't want to stay in that majority. That night, for the first time, I didn't just hope things would get better. I knew I had the tools to make them better. I had a starting point. Lesson 2. Build an emergency fund. Once I knew exactly where I stood financially, Charles introduced me to the next crucial lesson: building an emergency fund. An emergency fund, he said, is your shield. Without it, life's small surprises turn into financial disasters. At first, the idea seemed impossible. I could barely manage my monthly bills. How was I supposed to save extra money? But Charles broke it down in a way that made it feel doable, even for me. Start small, he advised. Aim for $500, then build to $1,000. Eventually, You'll want 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses, but don't overwhelm yourself at the beginning. He explained that most Americans live paycheck to paycheck, not because they're irresponsible, but because they have no buffer. One unexpected expense, a flat tire, a medical bill, a broken appliance, can push them into debt. In fact, a 2023 study from Bankrate revealed that 57% of Americans couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency with savings. I didn't want to be part of that statistic anymore. So, I opened a separate savings account, one that wasn't connected to my checking account. Out of sight, out of mind. Every payday, I set up an automatic transfer of $25 into that emergency fund. It wasn't much, but it was consistent. Charles called it paying your future self. In the beginning, it was tough. Sometimes I was tempted to skip the transfer, especially when friends invited me out or when I passed by stores having sales. But remembering the nights of panic, the gut-wrenching fear of not knowing how to pay rent, kept me disciplined. There were hiccups. A minor car repair wiped out my early savings once. It felt like starting from zero all over again. I wanted to quit. But Charles reminded me, using your emergency fund for emergencies isn't failure. That's what it's for. Just rebuild it. Over time, that small emergency fund became my safety net. It changed how I handled stress. When an unexpected dental bill popped up, I didn't panic. I paid it calmly and rebuilt the fund again. Having even a modest cushion gave me confidence. It was my first taste of true financial security, and it fueled my motivation to keep going. Lesson 3: learn the power of compound interest. When I finally had a small emergency fund, Charles introduced me to the magic of compound interest. Most people think they need to earn a huge salary to build wealth, Charles said. But that's not true. The real magic happens when you understand how money can grow over time. He opened his laptop and showed me a basic calculator for compound interest. Look, he said, if you invest $100 a month, starting at age 25, earning an average 7% annual return, by the time you're 65, you'll have around $240,000. But if you wait until you're 35 to start, you'll end up with just about $120,000. Same contribution, but a huge difference. Seeing those numbers made it click for me. It wasn't about being a stock market genius, it was about time and consistency. Charles told me about a janitor from Vermont, Ronald Reed, who amassed an $8 million fortune by living simply, saving diligently, and investing steadily over his lifetime. He didn't chase trendy stocks or gamble his savings. He stayed consistent. Motivated, I set up a Roth IRA and began making small, regular contributions. Even though it didn't feel like much, Charles reminded me, it's not about getting rich quick. It's about building quietly, day after day. Every time I made a contribution, even $50, it felt like planting seeds for a better future. Lesson 4: destroy debt strategically. Debt felt like a giant mountain looming over me, and for a long time, I didn't even know where to begin. Charles explained that attacking debt required more than just random payments. It needed a strategy. First, he said, list all your debts from smallest balance to largest, regardless of interest rate. I raised an eyebrow. Even if the larger one has a higher interest rate? Yes, he smiled. This method is called the debt snowball. It works because it builds momentum. Charles explained that paying off smaller debts quickly gives you psychological victories. Each success energizes you to tackle the next bigger one. It's about motivation, not just math. We also talked about the debt avalanche method, focusing on debts with the highest interest rates first. It's mathematically more efficient, but sometimes harder to stick to emotionally. For me, we chose the snowball method. I paid minimums on everything except the smallest debt, throw in every spare dollar at it. When that was gone, I moved to the next one. It wasn't easy. Some months I wanted to quit, especially when unexpected expenses popped up. Once, I had to pause my plan to cover a dental emergency. Another time, I almost gave up when my car needed new tires, but Charles kept reminding me, one detour doesn't erase the journey. We also worked on negotiating lower interest rates with creditors, consolidating a few debts, and cutting back on non-essential expenses. Every little bit helped. The turning point came when I paid off my first credit card. The feeling of closing that account was indescribable, like finally climbing above the clouds after years in the storm. Over time, each victory compounded. Smaller debts disappeared, interest payments shrank, and most importantly, I started to believe that financial freedom wasn't just a dream, it was inevitable if I stayed the course. Lesson 5: keep learning and stay humble. Charles warned me that the journey wasn't about one-time fixes. Money, like health, is a lifelong commitment, he said. I subscribed to financial podcasts, read books like The Millionaire Next Door and Your Money or Your Life, and even took a free online course in basic personal finance. Each small bit of knowledge made me stronger and more confident. Setbacks and growth. 1 month, I slipped. A surprise trip, emotional spending, and I fell behind. Shame crept in again. I almost didn't tell Charles, but when I did, he smiled. This is part of the process. Progress isn't linear. The key is to return quicker each time. We adjusted the budget, reviewed emotional spending triggers. I started journaling every time I had the urge to buy something I didn't need. Slowly, discipline grew. Real-life inspiration. The story of Sarah Blakely. Charles told me about Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. She started with $5,000 and zero business background. What made her successful? She learned to manage money wisely, bootstrap her business, and reinvest profits. No flashy spending, no shortcuts. Today, she's a billionaire and one of the most respected entrepreneurs in America. Financial literacy isn't just about surviving, Charles said. It's about positioning yourself to thrive. The ripple effect. It's been 2 years since that bank call. Today, I have no credit card debt. I have 6 months of expenses saved. I invest regularly. I even started teaching a free community class on budgeting basics every month. And the funny part, I make about the same as I did back then. It wasn't about more money, it was about more wisdom with money. Charles once told me, wealth isn't just income. It's knowledge, discipline, and mindset. He was right. Conclusion? Your turn. If you're reading this and feel overwhelmed by your finances, I want you to know, you're not alone, and it's not too late. Start with one small step. Track your expenses. Build a budget. Read a book. Ask for help. Open that high-yield savings account. Financial literacy isn't a privilege of the rich. It's a right, and once you claim it, you begin to reclaim your future. Like I did. Like you can. If this story helped you, please like, share, or subscribe. You never know who else needs to hear it. Because the truth is, your financial future starts in your mind.